Once home to the most wondrous kingdom the world had ever known, lasted to nothing in just a fortnight. It is here that the fiends of hell walk among us. It is here.
Hello and welcome to Dice on Ice. This is Crifoth, Reclamation, Episode 9. We are Legion. It is dark. You cannot see anything around you, but you can feel something. It feels like a heartbeat, but it's not a heartbeat that beats blood, nor is made from skin. It's a heartbeat that feels of sand, thrums with lightning, has water dripping from its arteries, and is ablaze in a giant inferno. Nimbus, this is what you see and feel all around you. Whoom-boom. Whoom-boom. This world heart. You're seeing it from afar, thousands of miles away. You can visualize it. You can see it as if it were in your hands. You see it falling apart, erupting, breaking, snapping, just imploding, exploding in tandem. It's chaotic, it's tumultuous. And it ends with you seeing the real world around you. You can see the soft sand beneath your feet. You can feel the gentle breeze. You can see a massive view. You're atop some tall spire, perhaps a hill, where only the strongest of winds can even dare touch you. You look down to your left, perhaps. You see a river that flows red. Nestled on this river is a village, a survivor camp with canvas tents, villagers that are herding goats, that are tending to herbs, that are moseying about as villagers would do in a world of Crifoth. Some sharpen spears, others gather water. And thus you descend from this great hilltop. The familiar sights of Red Run, the village, are familiar to you. You've seen these people, these faces many times before. What do you do when you have seen this vision, this dream that you just had? Is this a rare occurrence for you? Is it something you've never seen before?
I think for Nimbus, he at heart is an observer. Therefore, this is probably an occurrence that happens quite often. Maybe it is the same place, maybe it is many places. But he is always curious beyond words, wanting to watch and learn, no matter what the image.
You are approached, Nimbus, by a tall, sturdy, stout man, red-skinned, devil-horned. Nimbus, you've climbed down from your perch. Have you seen something? This man speaks to you, and you recognize him not as any man, but as the tiefling. We can call him chieftain, the deputy, the sheriff, the person who watches over this village with a iron but just fist. His name is Blooded. You can see upon his skin many scars, many welts, long, aged, calloused over, whippings and markings that denote him as having been a slave at one point. But now he stands free, far from the citadels, far from the strongholds of the archfiends who would lord over him. He looks down, maybe not even down, maybe at your height. What did you see?
I have seen many things, countless things, too much to speak of. There are visions, there are places. I know not where or why. My mind, if it is clustered, confused. I need to see more.
We'll take this to the wise one. Maybe she can make heads or tails of what you saw. If you can remember it, keep it in your mind, focus on it. It'll be important to just grasp onto something as fleeting as the things that pass through your own mind. And with that, he kind of leads you to a very, very pungent tent. One that reeks of incense and odors and other dried herbs. Here she is. She'll be inside. Don't know if she's awake yet. And with that, outbursts from the canvas flap door a tall, imposing lizard person, a Suri, hard scale. Wrinkled scales falling off. Behind her is another tiefling with skin that is fleeting and fading from its ruby redness. And behind her, yet still, is an orc. Lithe and small, but with a face of determination and sturdiness. Bone Whisperer, as you leave this tent, one of you has the sword wrapped in canvas, wrapped in cloth, hiding it from sight. You see this figure in front of you, in tow with this large chieftain tiefling, who you've come to know as Blooded. Cameron, you can go ahead and describe Nimbus for us from the perspective of these three.
Nimbus is a Stormblood incarnate. He is made of storm. He is made of wind. His hair is the clouds. His eyes are lit with lightning. His voice is a rumbling thunder. His hands seem to coalesce around weapons and then fade. And sometimes it seems like you can see through him, and sometimes it seems he is as solid as a storm wall coming in, carrying dust and debris. But always his eyes are searching, looking around. He is not large. He is average in size, perhaps under 6 foot tall. It's hard to gauge his true size because he does shift. And it seems like when the wind is up, he stands taller. His shoulders are broader. When the lightning strikes in the background, it seems like he is smarter and faster. But when the wind is still, he is hunched. He is quieter. He is more reserved. He carries with him these shoddy iron weapons, but you notice the light catches on flecks of copper throughout. He is simple. He has very little to his name. And his eyes are always searching, as they do now, over the orc and the Suri and the tiefling.
These three, you note that they are strangers. You've not seen their faces before. They're newcomers to this village. They've just left the wise woman's tent. Bone Whisperer, or any of the other two, do you say anything as you leave this tent?
I turn to Bone Whisperer as soon as he's in sight, assuming that he's not covered up. And I say, "From Rufan," which Bone Whisperer recognizes as Storm Spirit.
Bone Whisperer would just nod. It seems they have a lot of these kinds here. In all my years, I've only seen one other incarnum, and these past few days I've seen two.
Many spirit, one town.
This is an omen. Whether good or bad, I cannot tell. And I think that Bone Whisperer would be speaking in Orcish to you.
That makes sense.
And I think that Bone Whisperer would just look to the Incarnum with a wary glance, but with half interest, but with their goal, their mission they have, I'm not sure that. I think it would only be that, a passing interested look.
The orc, on the other hand, is agape with open wonder.
Blooded breaks the silence. His arms are folded, crossed in front of him. You're new here, he says to the three of you. You're strangers in my company. What are you doing here in my town?
We sought the counsel of an ash elf here. We will be leaving very soon. You do not have to mind us.
But minding you is my job. As overseer of Red Run, it is my job to keep track of every passing body going into and out of this village.
Well, now you have seen us, and we are passing. You have done your job.
What is that? He glances down at the wrapped sword. Whose hands is it held in?
Carnage.
Carnage. He's glancing down your hand, yeah.
Yeah. I think that Carnage, having been around many tieflings, is not... He's not flinching. He's not moving. He just stares directly at the overseer. And he steps forward just a bit, getting a little bit closer. It is our business to deal with. And if you choose to address this one like you have again, I do not think that that would be wise of you, Overseer.
Not speaking kindly. I don't take well to threats.
We are simply passing through. We have done nothing wrong. We are leaving.
And where are you headed?
Now that is our own business, because it happens to be outside of your town. And we do thank you greatly for your hospitality.
I think Carnage would look at you, Bone, and for a minute grimace at the fact that he can't just lay a hand on this overseer. He knows that it's not right. They have a job to do. Are we done here?
Nimbus, see them out of the valley. I don't want
Why?
any funny business happening with them.
Aye, that I will.
Thank you.
Thou shalt come with me. And he turns to the other three, looking them over again. Ever curious. And I rolled a 21 on a perception or insight to get an overall gauge of this group. What do they look like? What's their body language like?
All right, we'll start off with Bone Whisperer. What kind of body language is Bone Whisperer conveying?
Very calm, but very guarded. Extremely guarded. But keeping her emotions very passive, very observant. You can see the wisdom in her eyes, you can see her curiousness, but that is all that she lets people see.
What of Gopachun? What does her body language convey?
The initial reaction to seeing Nimbus was that of open awe and wonder, and that hasn't completely faded. Even though when the overseer started to speak, she did get her face got a little pinched, and she's kind of been snorting a little. But you can see, especially, there's probably a moment, Nimbus, where you're looking over at Goba and you see she's darting looks in your direction. Like, and then looks away quickly.
And what of Carnage? What does his body language convey?
Carnage is the epitome of a mixture of sorrow, regrets, and anger. The last few weeks have been nothing but pain for him for a number of reasons, whether it be a lack of the blood feeding, whether it be the death of a promising tiefling, or the lack of hope he's beginning to feel. And for me, I think Carnage is just seething with this aggression. So when he's standing there, he is fuming, especially seeing an overseer. He wants to waylay this overseer. He wants to do anything he can to just wreck house, but he knows that he can't because he has to be controlled. So you see this large, easily 6'8", 6'9" tiefling just seething with anger, horn on the corner, cut. And he holds his hand to the hilt of that sword with everything he has. And then he, as soon as Bone Whisperer kind of gives the direction that they need to leave, he kind of looks around the room. He gives an interested look at their supposed guide, this Nimbus, nods in acceptance, but then huffs off and goes through the curtains.
Nimbus is an awkward guide, if you could even call him that. He is trying to lead the way, doing as the overseer said. But at the same time, he constantly seems to be almost walking backwards at times to observe these three, to watch over them. And not in a way that you would expect, like he distrusts them. It is out of pure interest, out of the need to know more. And he has like this small game he almost seems to play, where he wants to catch Gobachun's eyes. His own oddly blank with just the light kind of shining there, no pupils. And then as his eyes gaze over carnage, he seems to have an inquisitive kind of smirk. Thou hast much of a storm raging unto thee. Tell me, have you tasted of our foe?
Yes, I have. And it's been a few days now since I've eaten. But it's best for me. I need to, purge myself of it.
I think thee as a humble gull. The demons. A blight upon this land. That they are. One should not be beholden unto them. Come, this way.
He looks at you when you say that, as if you're questioning. It's almost like as if you're questioning him, and that he is beholden to demons, or that he feels like he needs them. There's a slight twinge of aggression that comes through his jaws.
Tell me again, Bone Whisperer, why did we need a guide?
Red Run. It is an interesting place. It is what is left of what was lost from the old age. Community. Civilization. Where man cannot go up to man and simply slay them where they stand. It is important to preserve that, if not nurture it, to watch it grow. So, our guide is us making nice so that we can return to Red Run and not be beheaded and our heads mounted on spikes outside the village. I believe that is a small price to pay.
He wants to say something, but he looks at you and he nods.
Sometimes silence is the best.
Bone Whisperer would nod, and her tongue is just flitting out as she tastes the air.
Nimbus will catch the tongue flicking out and sort of glide closer. Thou taste the air. Tell me of it, for I cannot.
Bone Whisperer would tilt her head, look at you, and then it is dry, like the sand, gritty. But there is the slight sweetness that permeates all the air. Demons have this sweet taste. And so I am just making sure we are far away from any immediate danger.
Nimbus nods his head, and he seems to rise up for a moment, and you realize that he's inhaling, but he does not inhale through his nose or his mouth. He inhales from the air around him, through his very being. I thank thee, for I shall never know what you speak of. I am forever in your debt for this description.
Why are you in Red Run? You're kind. There seems to be a lot of you.
I know not. My purpose, it has not been written yet. I only know that I am there. And wherever I am must be where I am meant. As I am here, near this rock, and there, near the valley. Perhaps I shall know my purpose soon. I feel a rising, like the storm on a horizon. You three are curious, therefore I am happy to be here, to learn and to know more. Do you dream?
When I have the luxury of a long sleep, it is usually plagued by memories, yes.
Oh, memories. This is new. Yes. Sometimes when I fade from this world, from this realm, I see and I hear that which is not here. Like the great beating of a heart. I have seen a heart once. A man ripped open. It was like this, but vast. Vast beyond. I know not words. Forgive me. I only know... And he seems lost then, kind of in thoughts, and it's like he's listening to the wind, watching pebbles kind of roll across in the breeze. What? Oh, yes, memories. I wish to have them someday.
Carnage would speak up at that.
If you think that memories are something you want to hold on to, you don't spend a lot of time down here, do you? Crifoth isn't exactly the kind where you have pleasant memories of anything. And trust me, you don't want to know mine. They're more like nightmares.
But to have is better to wonder. I know not of what came before. Should it not be best to have something to compare? If one only knew the sun, one would not know how dear it is in the darkest of night. If I knew only the raging of the storm, I would miss the way the breeze swirls the sand when it is calm, when the eye of the storm is surrounding me. I think it is better this way, to have memories, to have the bad with the good.
Whatever floats your boat, Cloudman.
What is a boat?
Never mind.
Forgive me, I know very little.
That's fine. Just get us where we're going, and I won't have to worry about it.
I shall. And he continues on, a breeze with every step.
In Nimbus, you carry them, not carry them physically, but you lead them out some winding valley path. To the outskirts, you can tell by the markings, these bone hangings and feathered fetishes that adorn these particular walls that mark the end of the territory of Red Run. What lies beyond here is of no one's dominion, no longer. You see a great vastness ahead of you, all four of you, where the canyon walls end and only a cracked, earthy land begins. One where you can see for miles. One where you can see the many storm fronts of many passing sandstorms going here and there. Where you can see a red haze in the sky. Where you can see a dim gray sun high above, beating down relentlessly, achingly hot. You can see the reflection of some tarry oil, a pool of it, spreading like fingers across some other way. You see the rises and falls of the landscape, minor hills, small dips. But you see just how empty it is. You see the bone rib cages that litter the ground, a mass graveyard of all those who came before. You see Crifoth in all of its despair. And now you stand upon this precipice of a growing civilization, some meager survivor camp, and the barren unknown and the barren emptiness that lies beyond. You feel that cold firmness of blood obsidian in your hands, Carnage, with a sword wrapped in some hide. You can feel, Bone Whisperer, that polished, worn wood of your staff as you grip it for balance and for support. And Gobachun, you can feel the gentle breeze that Nimbus emanates with every passing moment around him. You can feel it more than just a physical touch. You can feel something very otherworldly about him, something very storm spirity about him. And what do you do, standing upon this precipice?
Nimbus, you speak of wanting to know more, but of not knowing. Why don't you accompany us in our travels? And at that, she would look to Gobachin and Carnage.
Koba nods. Long travel coming.
It seems as though we can't keep one group together, Bone Whisperer. Reminds me of my younger years with you.
I will not lie, Nimbus. I ask you to follow us for more selfish reasons. You are interesting to me. And as an old Suri, that does not come very often. Surprises and interests come less and less and farther in between. So when something comes that is of interest, I have learned that you need to grasp at it and follow it and see where it leads.
This is good. You should follow as I lead. The overseer did instruct thus. But I find thou interesting as well. I would accompany thee.
We have something to deliver. That is our first goal. We will tell you more on the way, but it is a lot, and it is quite odd of a story. But for now, we must deliver this, and she nods over to Carnage holding... it's not out, is it? It's wrapped up?
It's still wrapped up. Like you might be able to glimmer one or two specks of the blood obsidian, but for the most part, it's thoroughly wrapped up so that no one would be able to see it.
So, Bone Whisperer would just nod to that. We must deliver that to someone and return to Red Run. And so the decision is yours. Then, if you do not want to continue with us, you may leave when we return to Red Run.
I go wherever the wind takes me. And for now, yes, it is this way. I shall be delighted to be of company with you. You said you would tell me stories. I enjoy stories. Speak to me your memories and nightmares. I would hear all of them, and I would know more. Perhaps I can share with you, though I know so little.
A slow smile creeps across Bone Whisperer's face when you say that, and she nods. Very well.
Many pardons. I did not introduce myself well enough. I am Nimbus, Windwalker, brother of the storm. It is good to meet, to know, to understand you. And he does this weird bow that just doesn't seem fitting to anybody in Crifoth.
They call me Bone Whisperer. That is the common name I have chosen. That is Gobachun, and that is carnage.
I know what one would whisper onto a bone, but I would like to hear you do it. And he does his best impression of a smile. Carnage. You have weapons. I would like to see you use them to better understand my own. And he shows this weird rattling sack that he has with a lot of, looks like spears or javelins or something. Goba Chun. I do not know this word.
Oh. There's a baby goat.
I like goats.
I do not like goats.
And he like turns his head in that kind of inquisitive. Why would you call yourself a goat?
Others call Gobachun. It is name of shame.
You should make a new one.
And she looks puzzled at this. Like, make a new one? Like,
He glances over at the tiefling. One names. Thou namest the child, not carnage, clearly. For a child cannot rend or tear or destroy.
Have you been around many children?
In the village of a few. But there were baby goats.
But if what you're asking is, was I born carnage?
Indeed, yes.
No, I wasn't.
Therefore, baby goat can have a new name.
Makes sense. Never really thought to suggest she name herself.
If one does not like their name, they should change it, like the wind changes directions. And then he starts walking again, seeming very proud of himself.
And for a moment, Carnage looks at you, not angry, but like almost like you blew his mind. Like there's a, you mean I can change my name? Like I've had my name forever. What?
I know, right? I have the same feeling. Like, what?
And so Nimbus wanders off, headed, just guided by some force he does not know, but just some instinct that guides him. The three of you perhaps guide him to the proper path, the proper direction in which you are supposed to go. To that meeting place Talli had mentioned before. A single tree steadfast in a grove of death. He told you of other landmarks too, such as the great gates of pillars, the boneyard, the winding serpent. Once you pass those, you'll be at the meeting place. And so that is where you wander.
Did he give us any form of like time frame of when the person was going to be there?
Yes, he did. He said 2 days from now.
2 days, okay.
And by the way he said it, it seems like there's going to be about at least a day or a bit more, like a day and a half, maybe even 2 days of travel to get there. So it's a kind of an urgent traveling. And so, thus begins the survival phase. As you're trying to find the first landmark, which I believe I said it was the gates of pillars. And so you can find your survival phase in the Crifoth book, which you can get from drivethrurpg.com. Link in the description below.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Well, let me just flip to the actual page. I flipped to it exactly, 106. Wonder if I've worn the book a little bit out by flipping to this page commonly. Yeah, 106 is what you're looking at. The one with the fancy little lizard person. And so we'll start with Carnage, for he bears the sword. Carnage, what do you do in the survival task?
Okay, hold on. I'm getting there so I can look it up. I think I'm going to. I think I'm going to go do pathfinding. I'm going to try to find it.
All right. So that'll cost you 2 exhaustion points.
2 exhaustion points. Okay.
Yep. Give me athletics, survival, or perception against a DC of 13.
Well, that's a 19 with athletics.
So you're swift of foot. You're able to cover more distance than others, and with your athleticism, you're able to climb up steeper places, get better vantage points, just literally explore farther and beyond where the group is. And so now everyone else have their survival tasks cost 1 less for this round. And Chad, you can decide who goes next.
Let's have Bone Whisperer go next.
While they are walking, Bone Whisperer is looking for any form of brambles, maybe desiccated berries or other flora that she is able to find that she knows will be useful for healing. So she is going to gather remedies. Which is I think she's going to do a medicine check because she is specifically looking for medicinal things.
All right, this is a this is DC 13, but at disadvantage.
Disadvantage.
This is a sparse world.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck finding such things.
I got a 15.
All right. So this will cost you a total of 0 exhaustion points to do so because of how swiftly of foot Carnage was able to kind of guide out the proper paths, and he pointed out some that he spotted whenever he made a return. So you get 1 use of a healer's kit, which can be used to bandage up wounds during other phases of the game. As you find, some fibers that can be wrapped around wounds and some things that will numb pain or even clot the blood. Various types of sparse vegetation with herbal properties. And Megan, who goes next?
Let's go with Nimbus.
So this is all new to me, but congratulations on the book and all the changes since the last playtest I did. Pathfinding was going to be my choice, but Carnage is such a spry, nimble fellow that he has darted ahead. And so Nimbus is free to stare about, listening to the wind, following the breeze, and each twig that kind of tumbles across his path. But he is actually, for all of his childlike wonder, keeping vigilant. Because for him, his gaze may wander, but he perceives around him through the wind, through the clouds. And so I would like to do wisdom perception, please.
Awesome. Yep. DC 13.
Oh goodness, that's real high. 22.
Yep. So now, due to your vigilantness, all of you will have advantage on initiative checks in the next event, if it so happens to be, and you cannot be surprised because of Nimbus's keen eyes and overall just periphery feelings of the environment. And that brings us to Gobachun, the last actor in this survival phase. What do you do?
Gobachun is because of the rust colored river, we have water plenty, but I can't speak for y'all, but I'm running pretty low on food. So she's going to be hunting and foraging, looking for food units,
Awesome.
turning over some rocks, finding some grubs.
Getting some actual grub.
Yep.
So this will cost one less point of exhaustion for you, so it's only one instead of two. Give me either survival or nature with disadvantage, please.
Oh, with disadvantage, no less. All right. Yeah. That's going to be a 12.
Well, even with a 12, you find hints of the passings of game or other things that might nourish you, but it's all carcasses or rotted, festering in the sun, buzzing with flies, or long since mummified by the drowning sands of the world. Nothing edible, nothing potable.
No good.
Mr. Dungeon Master, sir, in the random things that Nimbus has gathered over his time, I think there's a chance he has some supplies. Is that true?
That is most definitely true.
He will see baby goat looking at the desiccated carcasses. He will maybe ask if this is a good thing to eat, and she will probably tell him no. And then he will say, what about this? And then he will hold out a wrapped parchment with some sort of edible thing in it from his pack.
And she will agree with you. Yes, that food.
I cannot eat the food. You can eat the food. And he just leaves it on a rock near her and then continues on.
Yoinks. But she's looking really puzzled, like, but then she nods. Spirits don't eat.
And so Carnage descends from some hill. He's spotted it in the distance. These great spires of sandstone emerging like pillars. Just a giant, almost eyesore in this flatness. They are nestled in some, we'll call it a crater, some kind of collapsing of the sand of the ground around them. That is the first landmark. You've spotted it. And something catches your eye, Carnage. Within, you see some forms, some figures standing at the epicenter of this concavity, at the center of all these great spires of stone. They don't seem to be moving. They have definitely not noticed you, or have not given you the knowledge that they've noticed you.
I think if there's a way for Carnage to not give up his perch, but also kind of relay the message back down to the rest of the group, he would do so. Even if it's like some sort of light shining off the edge of the blood obsidian sword, like, kind of like a SOS signal off the edge of the sword or something like that. I think that's what he would try to do. rather than leaving, because he doesn't want to get, hopefully, he doesn't want his movement to give away his position if he goes back down. He wants to kind of at least give them a heads up that something's here. So, Connor, what do you think? Would that be?
I think that they are kind of keeping an eye on you in general.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think flashing the sword or even anything shiny you have on you probably have something metallic or at least reflective dangling from your person.
I still have my halberd. I still have
Yeah.
the back of my halberd. So I think that would probably be on my back. The halberd blade is, basically curved and around the back. And so I would just sort of move it in a way that would indicate, just tapping it would move the head of the blade, and it would move it in the light just enough to kind of get your attention and know that, hey, up here there are going to be some form of guards or something we need to deal with when you guys get up here.
And you see the flashing of of Carnage's light, a signal. You can see him kind of in the distance. He's not too far off. He's definitely visible, and you can make out his pose and most of his features. He's pointing or indicating what he sees, but it's silent. The voice does not carry over the soft wind.
If Nimbus notices this, he will look towards Carnage, unable to hear him, and then use thaumaturgy to shout back, "What dost thou say?" as loud as he can.
And it's a booming voice, one that rumbles the earth.
I think that would set Carnage just everything he worked for. Like, just don't rage. Just don't get mad. He doesn't know what he's doing. And he'll look to see if that drew the ire of whatever's down there. And if it did, he's gonna move.
You look upon these figures, they're small, they're unmoving. They have not changed positions in any shape, way, or form, you can tell from this distance. I mean, they are quite a distance off. A few 100 yards.
Okay. But the fact that it did boom, I was worried that it would, cascade through these hills and valleys, and so he breathes a sigh of relief.
I spotted our first landmark.
And he can't roar it that booming, obviously, because he doesn't have that skill. But basically, if they didn't hear that, he's okay with yelling it back, and he'll yell it as best he can.
Nimbus will smile, very pleased with himself that he was able to communicate effectively. And he'll relay that to the others as if they couldn't hear it.
Bone Whisperer just has this very bemused look on her face, just looking very curiously at him, not going to correct him. Not yet, but she just has this, bemused look as they keep walking.
And so, Carnage, you've seen these figures. They have not moved at all. You see a passing breeze flow by, picking up dust and sand. It's visible from this distance, just the entirety of it. And it washes over them and coats them in dust, coats them in sand, as it picks up a great scooping of it, this wind. And as the wind calms down again, you see them half buried still. Their torsos not covered by sand, but below the waist is completely submerged. And they still do not move.
That's unsettling for Carnage. But it's also making him think that maybe what he thought were guards aren't. And so I think he'll begin, once he sees the group kind of making their way up or making their way around, however they're making their way towards this place, he'll start heading down towards it.
When you do so, you see
You're muted.
you descend down this perch. You have, as the sand tumbles beneath your feet in front of you, you take one wary step after the other. You see, as it approaches, as you approach it, these big, tall stone spires get closer and closer, larger and larger. Imagine a hoodoo, these carved stones, carved only by the wind themselves, eroded over time, balanced and perched in odd ways. It seems as if someone pushed them with even a finger, they'd topple, but they do not. You can see more and more of these figures now as this proximity reveals more information to you. You see the folds of their clothes are covered in sand. It's nestled its way in the cracks of it all. And you can see that they're in a circle. There's 7 of them. And they're holding hands. This circle's at the literal epicenter of these stone spires. They do not move, and no sound is emanating from them. You see something poking out of one of their hoods. Something kind of sharp, pointed. We can't really make it out what it is. All 7 of them are almost a stark bone white, their clothing. But their hands are a dark color. What do the other 3 of you do that are not Carnage?
This is landmark.
Yes. That's what they call it. On a map. That's what they call this, a landmark. But this feels like the caves.
Is dead men in sand.
And Carnage would be walking around it. He'd be walking around this circle. And I think he would be drawn to the blade. Or whatever shiny, shimmery thing that you said was sticking out of one of these things. I think that's where he would be heading.
As you circle around these figures. You see that one of them breaks formation. Not out of a sheer movement, but just, you thought all 7 of them were holding hands in a circle. The 7th one is kneeling. One hand is held onto the others, and the other one is buried now in the sand. And almost all of this person, or figure, or whatever it is almost completely covered by the sand. Only the top of their hood, you make it out, is visible. And you can tell from even closer proximity that the clothing they wear is not white as if on purpose. As if someone left leather out in the sun for many, 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 many months. Bleached. Stark white. All the pigment long irradiated and burnt off by the harsh suns of Crifoth. Any decorations or carvings or any kind of decoration on the clothing is scoured away.
You're, muted.
How much did you miss?
We heard that, it was scoured away and that you just...
Scoured away by sand from the many passing sandstorms through this place. But as you approach that last one of them with that jagged tip upon their head, you see it emerging from the fold of their hood. It is an ear. Long, slender. Longer than any tiefling ear, longer than any man's ear. An ear that reminds you of Talli's ear. But double it in size.
I think Bone Whisperer would slowly extend her staff and just kind of poke one. Give it a good jab.
The butt end of your staff punctures something. And instead of like knocking the thing over, you just punch a hole right in its side. You find it's as if something was made of plaster, perhaps. Something thin and like a beehive, or just, and you just feel it stick in to its form, that butt end, and nothing else had faltered from this person.
If they don't move, she would approach closer and unveil the hood from the figure that she had poked.
And you see, as you draw back the hood, it is stiff. You have to kind of crunch it, almost like even snap it a bit in places. As you fold it back, you see as if you see a face. At least it was once a face. The skin is stretched tight over the skull. Whatever moisture of this creature is long since vanished. The teeth are bared, for there are no lips. The eyes' sockets are empty, for there are no eyes, and no soft tissue on this person's face. Mummified where they stand. You notice that there are no pick marks of any kind of scavenging animal. It's as if this body has been left here just to decay, untouched by the elements, untouched by scavengers, untouched by mild or moldu or any kind of decay. Just mummified where it stands. You see that the ears have been snapped off. There's severings at their stumps where ears would be.
She would look to the others.
I'm sorry. Did Bone Whisperer pulled the ears off with the hood?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Ears are just snapped off.
Bone Whisperer would look to the others. These are not ash elves. Perhaps, if I could, I may grant speech to one of these. Perhaps.
Bone, these look like the circles. These look like the circles in the mines.
Yes.
I would be wary about poking something we do not know about.
But these could give us the answers that we need. It will not harm us. It can just speak.
He looks to the basically half. You said half buried. Is there a head? Is it being the one that is kneeling?
It's almost completely covered by sand. Only like the top of their neck and a bit of their shoulder, and maybe a bit of the top of their head is poking out of the sand.
Right. I think at that though, he's going to take a minute to kind of just gently wipe away the sand from this kneeling figure to see the expression that is like etched on the face. Because if juxtaposed to the one standing around him, if this one is in agony or pain, or if it looks different, it may give us a description of what went down here before we have to do something like that.
So you brush away the sand, you reveal its face. It is, imagine a mummified head. Just sick, twisted, distorted, as the flesh has been distorted by the drying process of mummification. Just pulled tight, teeth missing in places and bared in others. It looks no remarkably different from the others. Just a sight to behold that would sicken someone's stomach if they were not a denizen of Crifoth. And as you brush away more and more sand, you see that its free hand, the one that is not grabbing onto the others beside it, is clutched at its chest in a fist, tight, pressed up. You see something poking out of its fist. Something small. The tip of a bit of parchment or paper. Though you've probably never seen something like that before.
I haven't. And though Bone Whisperer probably does not read or speak, she is the first person that I assume would have knowledge of what a parchment is, or a piece of paper. You know, she's lived the longest. So I think Carnage, being naive to this, would grab for it. Would grab for the parchment in the fist.
The fist is firm, with a death grip that only corpses can have. The bones feel brittle, the skin is brittle to your touch. If you were to pry the paper, the hand would come with it. Or you may snap the fingers off, perhaps, to uncurl the fist.
And Carnage, not unaccustomed to breaking body parts, sees that he can't quite get his, large tiefling talons into the thing. And so he... shit. And with that, he'll grab just one of his hand axes off his belt and just hack the hand off, and then if he can, and then he'll take it and he'll just hand it to Bone Whisperer.
So, Bone Whisperer, you're handed a hand from Carnage. It is mummified, it is brittle. A little bit of skin and bone flake off just from mere manipulation. And you see it's clutching at something. Parchment, perhaps.
I believe that Bone Whisperer has seen parchment. She has seen writing, especially after helping Gift, since Gift could read, but Bone Whisperer cannot. She would look at the parchment. Would the scribbles match the scribbles that Gift was able to read?
And so as you wrench this paper from this death grip, snapping finger bones to get access to it, you unfurl it. And the first thing you notice is not even the scribbles upon it, but how lack of aged this parchment is. It does not have that worn, ripped, faded look that paper might have in this time and age. It seems pristine. It even has a bit of gold filigree across its edges. It kind of shines and glimmers in the light when you unfold it. It has ornamentation beyond description, this paper. And it is covered with this kind of purplish ink. These long, flowing letters. Elaborate, elegant. They do not match that Gift can draw. We have a hunch that this is unmistakably Elvish.
Mm. I would imagine that she would look at it and, I mean, with the elves also being there, I would imagine that Elvish looks how it is spoken. Very ornate and long worded and so on. So I cannot read this. But perhaps one of these, not perhaps, one of these will be able to. And she looks to Nimbus. I doubt you can read. I would be very surprised, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
What is reading?
I see.
Nimbus was looking over these things, very curious about how the wind seemed to have shaped stuff in this area. And he had been wanting to poke them, but he had heard Carnage say that would be a bad idea, and so he didn't. And then he saw Carnage hacking at things, and then he got curious again. He was almost touching when Bone Whisperer said his name, and he stopped and looked over.
Reading is a rare gift some people can have. It is when one person writes their thoughts, memories, ideas onto paper, and others can decipher and read their meanings, their memories, and their ideas from this parchment.
I would like to have memories. This sounds good.
She would slowly go up to one that has not been molested by us, and she would take her staff and she would hold it, and her hands would glow with this purpley silver light. And in a beam, it would shoot up to the tip of the staff. And in quick succession, she would tap the head, the chest of one of these corpses. And I think immediately you would see what would have been veins kind of spidering out from where she had tapped. Almost like this life force being put into this corpse. And she's going to cast Speak with Dead.
And as you do this, the jaw drops. As some limp skeletal thing would do. And its head turns. Just staring afterwards, unblinking, unmoving, directly at you. And if you were to move a step to the left or a step to the right, its head would follow.
And you can see that Bone Whisperer is concentrating on keeping this corpse with us, and she looks to the others. I do not have much time with this connection. We can only ask it a few questions until the connection is severed.
Ask it if it knows where we go now. And Goba shrugs.
Bone Whisperer would nod and look back to this corpse. Why are you here?
It responds in Elvish.
Bone Whisperer can actually understand Elvish.
And so those words pull the DM for a loop. They...
Haha! No.
The words are a rhyme, you can tell. They are some poem. And roughly translated to you. In aged deep, once buried, we are here, us seven.
And I think Bone Whisperer would be repeating this back to the others.
Nimbus just kind of leans in closer and closer as she's repeating and listening to this thing speak. He is rapt with attention.
Sorry. And Bone Whisperer would say, what were you looking for?
Ourselves.
She would hold up the parchment. What does this say?
And the skeletal head turns to the parchment. Sorin toreba is over. And so on and so forth for almost a good minute. Just reading out in long, drawn out, like lack of breathy words. And it reads out a poem. And a poem that speaks of a silvery sun. A poem that speaks of the birthplace, the birthing hour of an important individual who this title is given is a word you cannot recognize. And it's a poem that speaks of the many deeds that will be done by this great person who's being born, as if written by a person witnessing their birth then and there. Speaking of silvered hair. Speaking of a union of many diverse people. Speaking of the ending of wars, of peacetime. A hero. But it is all in cryptic verse, that even if you were given it, if I were to give you some kind of handout in which it spoke, it would still be some kind of riddled poem.
Bone Whisperer would be repeating this to the others as it was spoken to her. And then she looks to them. The connection is breaking away. We have but a few more questions to ask.
Bone Whisperer. Ask about our next adventure. Boneyard. Maybe they have seen it in the past. Maybe they know what it is.
Bone Whisperer would look. Do you know of what is known as the Boneyard?
Hazia! Yes.
Should I? She looks. One more question.
I think Carnage is at an impasse. He doesn't really know what to ask. And so he looks to Gobachun. Looks to Nimbus.
If Zion were still here, she'd want to know such secrets of the Harbingers. If they knew anything.
Bone Whisperer would just nod.
But I don't know. We have a mission to carry out. And I can't very well go on just yes to get us there.
Bone Whisperer. What do you know about the Harbingers?
Du frolani gerda mengor. Sinto amiga negor. The enders of all times. The enders of humans. The reign of dwarves. The flag bearers of a new world.
And at that, Bone Whisperer would drop her staff and lean heavily into it as the connection is broken.
This skeleton, mummified skeleton, almost just goes back to sleep, it seems. Its head finally lolls in that same spot. The jaw snaps back in that spot. It goes to the exact position it was in before you cast your spell upon it.
Bone Whisperer would quickly and decisively break the head off of this elf and take it.
That sickly snapping sound, although it does not have the snapping sound of wet tendons. No, it is very dry and brittle and pops off as if breaking apart, slate or other dry minerals. It leaves a fine dust upon your scaled hands. You have its head in your clutches.
I thought...
You notice it too has no ears, as if they've been snapped off.
I thought asking about the Harbingers would be more pertinent. And they obviously seem to know what it was.
That's fair.
Was
Now,
a good idea to ask.
Does it seem like the sands are picking up? Does it seem like we need to move at this point?
At first, you'd look down, you see that the pebbles and sand are all flying about, as if picked up by some wind. You realize that it's not from some sandstorm incoming, just from the presence of Nimbus. It's caught you off guard. It's caught you by surprise. You were worried for a moment until you realize that it's just your windy companion.
This was the remnant of an old time. Hopefully we never end up like that.
They speak of the Harbingers as if they are to bring good. It's quite interesting. We should probably continue. We do not have much time.
Well, as you said, or gift said, I can't remember. It looked like some sort of a treaty between the dwarves and the elves. It's possible. But the Harbingers could be good things. But perhaps they got corrupted by other desires. It's usually how Crifoth goes.
Well, we should return to Talli once this is all over. Tell him about what we have seen here.
Keep the scroll. He may be able to actually read it.
And I think with that, Bone Whisperer would just keep moving, or move onward in some direction.
You climb yourself out of this kind of concavity. You notice, though, that this gray sun is low in the sky. Within an hour or so, it'll be sunset and then darkness. Do you wish to press on through this darkness, or do you want to break camp for the night? Each comes with its own advantages and disadvantages.
We may want to press on. If we get there early enough, we can scout out the place where we are to meet. I trust Talli, but I do not trust anyone else who he might suggest we give this to. might be a good idea to get there earlier.
Carnage is kind of the same mindset. You see that after they've kind of perused through this elven ruin, he is taking note of everything, just mentally, so he can tell Talli or whoever, and then afterwards just heading out in any direction that is not facing the soon-to-be kilning sun.
So as the four of you turn your backs upon this place, who of you has the highest passive perception? You can just throw it in the chat, what yours is. Of course, it is the one who is observant to all things that would hear this. As the four of you finally turn your backs upon this place and leave it behind, a few strides up and almost out of this concavity. Nimbus, you hear it from behind you. A small cracking sound, a snapping noise. A little. You turn back to hear the noise, and you see that one elf that had that long ear has it no longer. Snapped off. Vanished. You see a bit of movement in the sand that is surrounding these corpses. But you see nothing that caused the noise, nor any trace of it afterwards.
Do we really have to go? There is so much here that is interesting.
We may be able to come back, but if the sands have not taken it. But we are needed elsewhere.
It is as if the wind does not touch it. Yet there, it is moved. Look. And he points out.
I think Bone Whisperer would look kind of perplexed to see if she can see anything.
And at first, I think it's like looking for, something hidden in plain sight. Maybe some kind of gesturing or urging is needed by Nimbus. And you see it afterwards. That one that had a big ear poking out of the hood it's clear as day missing that ear. As if snapped off, like every other of them.
There will be many. I feel as though there will be many unexplained things as we dive deeper into whatever is happening.
I get to see them all if I come with you, yes?
Yes.
We are agreed. This will be good.
It will be interesting. But I think that if everyone else is okay with it, I think that Bone Whisperer would want to press on.
Keep moving.
Nimbus will always see something interesting on the path ahead, so he is always eager to move.
And with that, everyone gains 1 point of exhaustion as you crest over this hill, as the sand and the wind and the sun all get to you in their own ways. And you crest this hill up out of this place, and you see beyond, in this dim, kind of darkened dusk sunlight, a somber red, a crimson that gives everything a sinister appearance. You see what would be called by any person a boneyard. For what lays ahead of you is a valley, not of stone, but of bones. Small skeletons, then larger ones, And you notice that with the passing winds, now that are starting to pick up a little bit more here and there, are unveiling and revealing more of these bones, rib cages, skulls, femurs, just littering the place. So the left and right are no large walls like a valley or a canyon, just more emptiness. But it seems as if these bones are some kind of path.
This seems as though this is our next waypoint.
I think Carnage would step up. He'd step in front of you, Bone Whisperer, and probably be the one to be willing to go survey it first. Kind of the meat shield before the meat shield before the meek. As he sort of steps in front and says,
I'll go take a look. Wait here.
So you press on, Carnage, leaving those behind you. The crunch of your footsteps, sometimes sand and sometimes small frail bones. Some intermittent snap catches you by surprise, eerie, unnerving. You see what you thought was a great rock turns out to be some great rib cage, a giant rib, 7 feet tall in the air. You pass it. You see another large bones, this time a hip bone, protruding out of the sand. You see a small black form come and perch upon one of these bones, peck at it a few times, lift its head. It cocks its head at you, watching you. And then it flies off in a flutter of feathers, leaving a few black feathers behind in its beating of wings as they fall limply and gently to the ground. It lands on another perch, another giant bone sticking out of the sand, farther away, pecking mindlessly at it, and then watches you every so often.
as he's taking strides in this bone, you can hear the crunch. Snapping, just like twigs under his feet. Every couple of feet, he'll stop, kind of, hold up a hand, and then motion forward, so that at least they're not staying far back. There's like, he'll go a couple of feet, motion forward, go a couple of feet, motion forward. These are things that he learned in the Blood Knights in his short time being there, but things that he picked up from watching them. But other than that, it's just muscle memory for him. Move in, survey, go ahead. Move in, survey, go ahead.
This path of... Go ahead.
I think Menimbus might see this as almost as a game, sort of lightly kind of hopping ahead and then stopping when Carnage tells him to. He kind of looks around, observing the bones, watching Carnage intently. And then he hops again, as gently as he can, not trying to crush any bone if he can whatsoever, being as light on his feet as possible. And he tries to get as far as he can before Carnage stops him. But he does stop every time.
And Goba's following along at Carnage's cues, but I think she's probably fruitlessly trying to step gingerly around Bones and just buffalo through and, crack every single thing possible.
Bone Whisperer would be going through, but she would be keeping an eye out for any skulls.
And there are many, from rodent to bird to great beast of burden to horse to demon to human to any other thing imaginable.
She is looking specifically, and maybe you want her to roll investigation, for either orc or tiefling.
Give me a D100 roll, please.
74.
You do not find either. Neither tiefling nor orc. Many human. Many elven. But many animals. You find that more and more as you pick through them, they all seem to be animal bones more than anything else.
She would be following, though, as well. Trying not to hold them too far back by looking.
Once again, the bird flutters. Caws. Caw! 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 Whether just being a mere annoyance or giving some kind of warning signal, it's hard to tell with these birds. They're arrogant.
Are there many birds or just
It's
the
just
one?
the one. This one.
There are two. As Nimbus is standing there and watching and listening to his bird, he begins to mimic the same noise, making it sound like it's cawing twice right next to him.
No. Goba would like to kill this bird. Or she'd like to try.
Yeah.
She just like at one of Carnage's cues to stop, she's just gonna reach down, grab 3 stones, mutter an incantation while she's holding them, and then take out her sling. And I have cast Magic Stone.
All right. This bird is about 50 feet away.
I don't think I can hit that. Oh, yes, I can, but I am rolling at a disadvantage.
Caw! Caw!
That's not terrible. Oh, yeah, that's pretty terrible. That's a 10.
A 10, you hit and splinter the bone in which it was resting on, and it flaps off from that sudden noise, leaving more, greasy black feathers to drift onto the sand below as it flies off, just away. Away from
Good
you guys.
enough.
Wind brother, fly. No. Ah. Ah.
There are rumors that I heard that these birds are messengers. That they are not birds, in fact, but demons, disguised as innocent birds. And they watch the people of Crifoth, and they watch, and they listen, and they report back.
When you say that, Carnage stops, like just dead stops in his tracks. Looks at you. He's heard those same rumors. I feel like those rumors have gone around. And then he thinks to himself, why would he have been so brazen? Why did he just not think that it was why did he think it was just a bird? And now he kind of grips his halberd hilt, I think, tightly around the back. And he takes a large breath in, and Connor, if there's any, I think he'll probably even grab up a feather if there's any around that are nearby me.
Yeah, there's one near
my feet. He would grab one up and then just take a huge whiff of that bird feather. Because I imagine that, like, if it is demonic in nature, that he would probably know what that demon blood smells like. He would know what that essence is.
When you pick it up, it is greasy. It is covered in some kind of bugs, small, tiny little ticks, smaller than a grain of sand, and they kind of scurry about on the feather. You bring it up to your nose, you inhale. It does not reek of sulfur or of brimstone. It reeks of sweat, blood, death, gore, decay, disease, but not of demon.
It is, of course, just a story.
As that's just a bird.
He flicks the feather away, almost disappointed that it's not a demon. At this point, he's not fed for close to 3 days now? I think we're on 3. His pallor's getting much, much paler as the days go on, and his need to feed and triggered aggression is becoming more and more apparent.
Nimbus will try and catch that feather out of the air that Carnage has dropped and stow it away in his bag of interesting things. And he thinks to himself, a demon? That can fly? No. Demons are bad. Things that fly are good. And he nods to himself, looking perplexed, and then follows.
You say that out loud?
Yeah, he'll mutter that.
Some demon fly.
If we were to ever see a demon fly, I would make it not fly. It should not fly. Only good things can fly. Bad things will... I will make them not fly. And he looks very determined and actually kind of angry for a moment, lightning crackling around his eyes.
And as you walk through this boneyard, crunch, crunch of the sand, you see it gets broken in half as this boneyard spreads more and more. It's broken in half, it's cleaved by a thick black river, but not of water, of that sickly affliction that courses through the world of Crifoth. That world plague, the oil that runs and flows everywhere. And it winds, stretching off in either way. It glistens in this low light, shimmering as if it had scales. across this river, more bones lie, stretching off further than the eye can see.
How wide is this river of affliction?
It is about 20 or 30 feet wide.
And it seems to stretch on, like, in either direction?
Yeah, it winds, curling this way and that in either direction.
Well, this is an obstacle.
I don't know much about the boneyard. That.
He motions to the river of affliction.
That looks like a river. Any chance?
And he looks to either Bone or Gobachun.
Any chance that could be the winding serpent we're looking for?
Bone Whisperer would just nod.
Goba shrugs. Is not serpent.
It's sometimes what people call a river, as it slithers like a snake.
We should travel along it, for we can't travel through it.
Well,
If I remember correctly, tieflings would be immune to affliction, right? And he looks to you and he's like,
well, I could, but I don't want to risk the rest of you. So we'll go around. Hopefully that'll lead us to where we need to get. Sooner than better.
Nimbus looks closer at it and then turns to the others. We can just walk across it.
You cannot touch this. It will poison you. Poison your mind, your body, and then you will die. But not before losing your very being.
I imagine Nimbus, you're like almost like leaning over it, you're approaching it now at this point, kind of just looking at it in its glory. And once you get within a few yards of it, you get this almost like gut reaction to it. Like imagine looking upon roadkill, that sense that we get. We're just disgusted by it, just instinctually. You have that feeling, Nimbus, but it's multiplied by 100. You feel your body ache. You feel your insides, the bits of storm and wind and gale that form your insides. They twist and they churn and they struggle to be freed. They struggle in agony. Every bit of you feels just agonized by the sight of this, by the presence of this. And you almost have to recoil away just out of sheer shock. Of just how much magnitude this would cause you such unease.
It is bad. Very bad. I could walk across it, but I do not want to.
There is a difference between can and should. Trust me, you will die. if you walk into this, the only one who will not die is Carnage. He is already tainted, already poisoned.
Carnage is bad? He asked questioningly.
No, not bad. What is inside him, maybe, or is. His blood flowing through his veins, but not his mind.
What if we used the wind to walk across, but did not touch it?
You may be able to do that, but I and Gobachin cannot walk on the wind, as you may be able to.
If it is for a short time, I think I can. I have never tried to walk on this before, though. And he kind of sneers towards the liquid.
Bone Whisperer would look to Gobachin.
Gobachun can cross, but Bone cannot cross.
Perhaps we should just find a way around. I do not want to risk even a moment of touching it, even one drop.
It is bad. And he begins looking to either end of this as it stretches out, trying to see in the far distance which direction should be better.
It is very low light now at this point, where the haze of dusk has set upon you. You see that one of them is mildly uphill and the other is mildly downhill, but otherwise are featureless.
Does the water flow? Or the
Thick.
water, the...
Thick like a viscous liquid, like a tar, it flows. And as it flows, it shimmers, glistening as oil does, refracting light with an array of colors.
I think that Bone Whisperer would just sit quickly, and she would she is going to take some of the small bones that she can find around her, finger bones, knuckles, maybe a wrist, any of these little bones, and she would, which I assume she can easily find.
Absolutely.
So she would take these small bones and she would cup them into her hands, and she would whisper into them and begin to shake them. Whisper and shake. And eventually you would see them beginning to glow in her palm. And once they reached this blinding light flashing in between her fingers, she would let them go across the ground. And she's going to be casting augury. I think that's what she wants to cast.
Yeah, that's the yes, no, and maybe so question, I think it is.
Yes.
Or it's wheel and no woe and
Wheel and woe.
then wheel and woe, or neither wheel nor woe.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Um,
And so you feel whatever small bits of life cling to these finger bones and remnants of bone shards. A little bit of each of those prior people resides within those bones, and you draw upon them these fractions. And as you add all these fractions together, you're able to form a cohesive person in your mind. But a person is not even the right word for it. An entity of some kind. And you ponder this entity. And you think. And you ask it something. What do you ask?
if we travel downstream from this winding serpent, will we reach the tree?
You feel the sense of dread, of woe, of a sharp negative response as the collective consciousnesses that you've gathered all scream no.
We shall travel upstream. The bones have whispered their secrets. And she would begin to stand.
Can Nimbus find a bone long enough to poke at this without touching it?
Yes.
He would like to see how deep it is.
You, at the edge, sure, it is only inches deep. And then as you kind of reach more and more over, you find that the bone gets more and more submerged until there's not enough bone to reach the bottom.
Yeah, he is too afraid to tempt further, so he will back, letting the bone go, with a disgusted look on his face.
Goba surveys the area around them, so we know that we're in a boneyard, essentially. Fucking bones everywhere. Are they all humanoid-sized bones, or are they varied? Are there any exceptionally large bones?
There are some very large bones and some very small bones. It's as if any matter of being has come here to die.
Of the very large variety, do we see any long, flat bones like clavicles or pelvises or skull fragments that could be used maybe as a makeshift barge? Well, okay, not a barge, not that big, but you know, like enough for like one or two fucking people?
As you scrounge about, you see, sure, some of them stick out of the sand. A lot of them are buried. A lot of them are broken. A lot of them have holes that are porous, have been weathered by the elements, and so you can give me an investigation check.
Ooh, okay. Oh! All right. Okay, that is a 7 on the die. -1, that's a 6.
You find many bones that are large, but none that you would trust with, putting yourself upon it to act as a flotation device.
And Goba's looking at all these bones. No good. No good.
We should travel upstream. And if it gets to the point where we can cross, we should do so. Or we come to the tree, whichever comes first.
And so you head upstream, as the world has now blanketed it into night. as you travel. It's hard to see ahead of you. Only a select few of you can see in the dark. The tiefling and the Suri, I imagine, are the only ones with dedicated nocturnal vision. The other ones find themselves just in the shroud of night, as there are no stars that illuminate the sky. What few that are dim, are dying, clouded out by some haze, some smog that lingers in the atmosphere of Crifoth. It is dark. The moon is some somber, dim thing. Barely a guide in the sky to make sure you have not strayed from your course. Every so often you feel a bit of rubble and stone and sand slip underneath your feet as it cascades into the river, as you found yourself approaching one of the bends of this winding serpent. And as you walk, and you trudge and you trudge. You finally come across it hours later as the red peaks up above the horizon, casting dawn light across the land. A great silhouette of a meager tree. It stands next to a large boulder. Its bark is ripped, decorated by many marrings of claws, many carvings of peoples, and many other things still. Fetishes, decorations, skulls, bones, ornamentations. This is a tree that stands out. The boulder next to it has a big handprint upon it, of red paint, perhaps, maybe blood. I'm not sure. Like dark crimson. But beyond that, still the most eye-catching part of this scene. Dozens of forms of these structures surround this tree and this stone. At first they seem like pillars of earth, like the ones you saw before. When the light peeks over more and more and casts them, illuminating them from shadow, you see that there is people upside down, covered in blood, bound, tied, posted with thick nails of a dark black inky substance, shards of obsidian, crucified upside down, dozens of them, upon these pillars. You hear the clanging of footsteps, thick, heavy. Chunk, chunk, chunk. Dozens of footsteps as many dark, red and black armored wearing figures emerge from behind many other boulders. A voice comes out. "You've come early, Talli. Now hand it over." And as they present themselves, you see in number 20 or so legionaries, each with bearing great horns, their armor flowing red as if covered in blood of blood obsidian. At its head is a legionary, is what seems to be a legionary, though it stands 3 or 4 feet taller than the other ones. It is slender, with skeletal arms, though covered in armor, as the others are, with horns that are so wicked and so tall they curl around once and even twice around its head. Upon this figure's shoulder perches some mangy thing. Its head is beak-like. Its body is naked, skin full of pustules and wrinkles, a little bit of stray feathers. But it looks like a plucked chicken, I guess would be the best way to put it, with its nasty skin.
You muted, buddy.
And they stand there.
There you go.
Though they do not have their weapons drawn, they stand in formation. And with that, we close the game. This was episode
session with plucked chicken. I need to know more.
We Are Legion is what the 20 or so legionaries bellow out in unison as they chant and stomp with their heavy boots. And with that, the session's over. That was Crifoth, Reclamation. These are my good friends, Megan, Tamiko, Cameron, and Chad. And with that, we will do some cool little outros. You can tell us about who you are, what you're doing, and why you're here, and why am I brutalizing you in the world of Crifoth. Start off with Chad in the bottom right corner.
Oh my god. I'm hurting right now, Connor. I'm hurting. You built up all the suspense, and then you don't let me get to do anything. I hate it, but I love you. Man, this was great. I love when we can introduce new characters. I love when I feel like everybody sort of plays to their strengths. And this game was filled with RP, suspense, and like really cool things that I love about Crifoth. Just the lore and everything. Thank you, Connor. This was really cool, man. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Chad Nick, K-N-I-C-K. You can find me on YouTube under that same name. I play D&D sometimes over there. I run some games that are pretty cool. You should check them out. Most of the time, though, I'm over here at Dice on Ice because I enjoy being a player and hanging out. And these guys run some awesome games. So, yeah, other than that, I am also 1/3 of the Dudes of Yore with Jeremy Lilly and Jeff Doty. Eventually, we will get a podcast out. I promise that. Here I go, making promises for the whole group. Whoops. Sorry. Love you guys. Anywho, thanks, guys. I had a lot of fun tonight. It was a blast.
Thanks, Chad. And making their first appearance in this game, we have Cameron. You can tell us about yourself, plug yourself, do whatever the heck you want. You got the stage. Don't ruin it.
Never mind then. Hi, my name is Cameron. I am an RPG hermit / cultist. You'll never see me do anything ever. And if you do, you imagined it. I have no channels. I have no social presence. I'm just here to sort of latch on to these fun folk and enjoy the ride. Sometimes I go by Desert King on the Googles, but otherwise I just enjoy hanging out and exploring all these crazy worlds these fun people create. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Cameron. And Tamiko.
I'm relatively sure that Rory sold us out, and I'm not pleased about this, but what can you do? So hi, I'm Tamiko. I do not have a channel either, but you can see me in a lot of videos here, Dice on Ice. I also play in another game every Wednesday that's streamed on Twitch. My friend Jason runs that channel. We've just finished up a year-long campaign arc, and we are going to be starting a new campaign where we're playing Monster of the Week. So that should be exciting. If you want to check that out at all, it's on Twitch TV /Lunchbaux. That's BAUKS. And yeah, that's it. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Tamiko. And lastly, Megan.
Hi, I was knocked unconscious and I woke up here and now I don't know where I am or what
help.
to do. Send help. Hi, Megan. I am the other half of this YouTube channel. So, yeah, bye Crifoth. on DriveThruRPG. It's a great book, I think. Yeah. I think that's it. Oh, actually, that is not it. Join us on the 19th, where we will be showcasing another setting that is in the works right now, called Behemoth. And I will be running a horrific game on there. So, or on here, I guess. So, yeah, check it out. Anyway, thank you.
Finally, thanks to Jacob Nurman of Mini Terrain Domain for that cool introduction video thingamajiggy we saw earlier at the beginning of the stream. Thanks to him for making it. It's been an absolute pleasure just like having him as a buddy, and he's doing all these amazing things for us. And with that said, we'll just wrap things up. And Megan, can you take us to Crifoth out of here?